Betty, bam lamb, whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb, Black Betty had a child, bam lamb.
You know the song, but do you know the band? Today, we're counting down 10 rock songs that became bigger than the bands that made them.
In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, honey, don't you know that?
Beginning with a track that started as a joke and somehow became a prog-rock hit. Number 10, Hocus Pocus by Focus. In 1971, Dutch prog band Focus was rehearsing at a castle in the Netherlands when guitarist Jan Akkerman landed on a heavy Chuck Berry-style riff. Akkerman later described Hocus Pocus as a playful jab at overblown rock groups, and in some ways, at Focus themselves. Then, Thijs van Leer, the band's keyboardist, flutist, and vocalist, spontaneously started yodeling over the top of it. The inspiration came from nowhere, but purely out of the fun of playing together. By 1973, that studio oddball had exploded, cracking the US Top 10 and peaking at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100. Nearly 40 years later, Nike revived the track for its massive 2010 World Cup campaign, sending it back onto the UK and Dutch charts. But outside the prog faithful, none of that nuance mattered. Focus became the yodeling riff band. Once that label sticks, it is almost impossible to scrape off. The next song is an iconic Southern rock song made by a band from New York. Number 9, Mississippi Queen by Mountain.
Mississippi Queen, if you know what I mean.
Bassist, vocalist, and producer Felix Pappalardi had helped shape Cream's late 60s sound, producing Disraeli Gears, Wheels of Fire, and Goodbye. When Cream imploded, he and Leslie West built Mountain into something that felt like America's answer to that massive, heavy rock tradition. The band's wider vision was bigger than casual listeners remember. Blues weights, proto-metal muscle, and ambitious album cuts that reached far beyond bar band boogie. Eddie Van Halen later praised Leslie West's incredible tone in Mountain. But the 2.5 minutes they are permanently remembered for made them seem much simpler than they really were. Driven by Corky Lang's cowbell count-in and West's thick, snarling Les Paul Jr. tone, Mississippi Queen tricked mainstream radio into hearing Mountain as simple, straight-ahead Southern rockers, even though the band was formed in New York. Sadly, all that stage-shaking volume came with a real-world cost. Pappalardi later suffered serious hearing problems connected to Mountain's punishing live sound, and the classic lineup dissolved by 1972. The guys on stage playing our next song weren't the ones who actually recorded it. Number 8, Black Betty by Ram Jam.
Black Betty, bam lamb, whoa, Black Betty, bam lamb, Black Betty had a child, bam lamb.
In 1973, guitarist Bill Bartlett cut a hard rock version of the traditional folk work song Black Betty with his regional Ohio band, Starstruck. New York producers Jerry Kassenetz and Jeffrey Katz heard the tape. These were the bubblegum pop operators behind the 1910 Fruit Gum Company and Ohio Express. Their move was pure show business smoke and mirrors, reshape Starstruck's recording, and build a new band around it. They called it Ram Jam. Bartlett stayed on, but the singer, bassist, and drummer most fans saw weren't the musicians who cut the record blasting out of radios. Black Betty hit number 7 in the UK, number 18 in the US, and reached the top 3 in Australia. But Ram Jam never escaped the manufactured rock smell around it. Their 1978 follow-up flopped, and the group was finished by the end of the decade. Yet the song outlived them completely. And once a song becomes that famous, the band's real story almost disappears. The next hit was written as a frantic Pete Townsend impression, born right after the worst gig in the band's career. Number 7, All Right Now by Free.
All right now, baby, it's all right.
Free had just walked off a stage at Durham University to almost no reaction. Bassist Andy Frazier's description of the crowd? All of their heads on mandrakes. Drummer Simon Kirk remembered leaving the stage to the sound of our own footsteps, with the applause dead before he'd even left the drum riser.
She said, look, what's your game, baby? Are you trying to...
Back in the dressing room, Frazier sat at a piano and worked out the chords in about 15 minutes, attempting, in his own words, a Pete Townsend impression. Paul Kossoff transposed the piano chords to guitar, and Paul Rodgers finished the lyrics the next day while waiting for a lift to a gig. That throwaway song became a classic, hitting number 2 in the UK and number 4 in America, and eventually passing 7 million broadcast performances. Rodgers and Kirk went on to form Bad Company. Guitarist Paul Kossoff died at just 25, and in the broader memory of rock radio, Free became the band behind one immortal song.
Baby, it's all right now, yeah.
The next band had their momentum wrecked by 2 medical disasters that hit back to back. Number 6, The Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy.
The boys are back in town, boys are back in town.
Mercury Records didn't hear a single. Then 2 Louisville, Kentucky DJs started hammering the album cut on air. Listener calls flooded the switchboard. That forced the issue. The track exploded, hitting number 8 in the UK and number 12 in America. But right as stardom arrived, the nightmare started. That summer, Phil Lynott contracted hepatitis, forcing Thin Lizzy off their US tour with Rainbow before they could finish the job.
If that chick don't wanna know, forget her. The boys are back in town, boys are back in...
Then, right before their next American trek supporting Queen, guitarist Brian Robertson had his hand sliced open with a broken bottle during a London club fight. Tendons, nerves, and an artery were damaged. Gary Moore stepped in, but the classic twin guitar attack was fractured at the worst possible second. 2 huge chances to build an American audience, both damaged by brutal timing. The man behind the next song's iconic hook wasn't given a single credit for decades. Number 5, A Whiter Shade of Pale by Procol Harum.
As the miller told his tale.
On June 8, 1967, A Whiter Shade of Pale hit number 1 in the UK. The Hammond organ hook was built by organist Matthew Fisher, drawing from Bach, with echoes often compared to air on the G-string. It is one of the most played recordings in the history of British broadcasting, with more than 1,000 known cover versions. Procol Harum went on to pioneer symphonic rock, blending full orchestras with electric instruments years before that idea had a neat label.
Turn cartwheels across the floor.
Their 1972 live album, with the Edmonton Symphony, hit number 5 in the United States. Sadly, Fisher received no co-writing credit for the organ hook he composed. He waited 38 years, then sued Gary Brooker and the song's publisher. The case reached the UK House of Lords. Fisher won in 2009. Brooker said the legal battle cost him a fortune in fees.
One of 16 Vestal virgins.
Next on the list is a drunken slur that accidentally became one of the most recognizable song titles in rock history. Number 4, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida by Iron Butterfly.
In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, honey. Don't you know that, honey?
On May 27, 1968, Iron Butterfly showed up at Ultrasonic Studios in Hempstead, New York, for what they thought was a warm-up sound check. Engineer Don Casal quietly kept the tape rolling. Nights earlier, singer-organist Doug Ingle had drunk a gallon of cheap wine and tried to show drummer Ron Bushy a new song called In the Garden of Eden. He slurred it so badly that Bushy wrote down what he heard, In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. When they ran through it in the studio, they jammed for over 17 minutes. That accidental rehearsal became the final record, turning the album into a multi-platinum beast. Slayer later covered it for a major Hollywood film, and Nas built the title track of a #1 album around a sample of another version. The first side still had 5 tight psychedelic rock songs that show real talent, but that drunken 17-minute jam became the only thing anyone remembered about Iron Butterfly. 3 songs left. Still ahead, the ultimate biker anthem, a band that survived its monster hit, and a song recorded in one take that became the first British invasion #1 not connected to the Beatles. Next up, an accidental counterculture classic. Number 3, Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf.
We were born to be wild. We can climb so high.
Mars Bonfire was driving his beat-up Ford Falcon through a ferocious thunderstorm around Los Angeles when the phrase heavy metal thunder popped into his head. He remembered the periodic table from school and used it to describe the lead-colored sky. He wrote the song at home, almost whispering the vocals. With the guitar turned so low, it sounded like a banjo. Publishers rejected it, so he gave it to his brother's band, Steppenwolf.
All of your guns at once and explode into space.
Dennis Hopper and Peter Fonda used the track in Easy Rider, and once those motorcycles hit the screen, the song was welded to the open road forever. Behind that definitive biker anthem was a ferociously anti-war, anti-establishment band. Steppenwolf's album Monster was a blistering American political critique, loaded with cuts like Draft Resistor, while earlier songs like Don't Step on the Grass Sam took aim at the establishment too. For the wider public, though, the open road freedom of Born to Be Wild swallowed everything else. The next band managed something almost no one on this list did. They actually survived their hit being bigger than them. Number 2, Radar Love by Golden Earring. The Dutch quartet released Radar Love in 1973. It became the definitive driving anthem. Number 1 in the Netherlands, a top 10 smash in the UK, and crashing the top 15 in America. It was covered hundreds of times by artists including U2, REM, and Def Leppard. Top Gear even ranked it among the greatest driving songs ever recorded.
In our love.
Golden Earring stayed together for over 50 years and built a catalog of more than 24 studio albums. They managed to live a full, legendary career right under the shadow of their biggest mainstream anthem. When founding guitarist George Kooijmans was diagnosed with ALS, the band retired the Golden Earring name. They said they could not perform without him. The song became a permanent cultural anthem. The band became one of the great untold stories in rock. The final song was recorded in one take in about 15 minutes, and that was all it took to make rock history. Number 1, House of the Rising Sun by The Animals.
They call the rising sun.
May 18, 1964. The Animals were on a UK package tour with Chuck Berry. Eric Burden thought it was insanity watching every opening act try to outdo Berry by playing his own style. So they chose something different, a traditional American folk ballad. They walked into a London studio and cut it in one 15-minute take. Producer Mickey Most heard it and knew they had a single. When the engineer said it was too long, Most waved it through. We're in a micro-groove world now. It hit number 1 in America in September 1964, the first British invasion #1 not connected to the Fab Four. Bob Dylan heard it on his car radio, and it helped push him toward the electric sound that exploded at Newport. Music historians often call it the first folk rock hit. Behind the scenes, royalties tore the band apart. The vinyl label didn't have room to print 5 names for the arrangement credit, so the credit went only to keyboardist Alan Price, and the royalty windfall went exclusively to him. The trust collapsed. The classic lineup was gone by 1966. Chaz Chandler left performing behind, then discovered and managed Jimi Hendrix. The song appeared in Vietnam documentaries, car commercials, and Casino. But for the Animals, their finest 15 minutes in a studio was the beginning of the end.
In God, I know I'm one.
Which other classics belong here? Let us know in the comments. And if you made it this far, you'll probably crush the Backstage Classics trivia book. It's linked below.